Welcome, everyone, to the You Are Worthy Network. So good to be with you guys again. I'm excited to introduce you to another wonderful guest. But before I get into her bio in just a second, I just want to take a minute to remind each one of you that wherever you're at, whether you're on top of the mountain today or whether you're in a really, really difficult week or somewhere in between, I just want to remind you that you are worthy of love, respect, and success. Why? Because God loves you and He sent His only Son for you. And wherever you're at in that range that I described, if you're still here today, God's not done with your story yet. There's still more, and be encouraged by that. So it's great to be with you guys. I appreciate each one of you. I'm excited to tell you about my new friend and my guest, Anita. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then we're going to dive right in. Anita Smith has been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. She is a certified coach and trainer, a global speaker, an international best-selling author, podcast host, CEO and founder of Meant for More LLC and Bold Moves Academy. She is a strong advocate for individuals who have been traumatized by narcissistic abuse. She teaches the Bold Life Mastery Method, which is the framework to help individuals gain clarity, confidence, and increase resilience through building techniques and strategies. Her unique insights help to increase awareness, to accelerate high performance habits, and increase mental toughness. The tools she uses are designed to help you regulate your emotions, to stay grounded in truth, so that you can rise stronger and be more equipped to face the things you fear as you rebuild your life. She helps you to master your leadership skills through confidence, trust, relationship, communication, and identify building processes to stand in your power and step into your God calling. She
Mhm.
is a multi skilled, multi certified, licensed professional and works with both men and women who are ready to shift their lives and level up. She believes there are no quitters, only people who haven't learned the skill set to live a bold life. I love everything I just read. There's so many questions I have, so little time, but let's jump in. Anita, welcome to the You Are Worthy Network.
Well, thank you so much. I just, Steve, I feel so honored to be here in your presence and in this interview. It just really is such an important thing for us to know who we are and how worthy we are of doing and being and being able to be at the highest level that we can in this life and really answer our God calling. I think so many times in my life, I look back and I'm like, oh, was I not paying attention? Was I not listening to my Heavenly Father and being obedient? Did I miss it? But I just love that no matter where we're at, it's like time is irrelevant to God and numbers don't matter. You know, He is the God of miracles and it can happen in a moment. Change can happen in a moment. It's just, are we willing? Are we open? Are we that person that wants to show up in our best form and keep striving for that? And that is a lot of the foundational things that, when I'm working with individuals, they come to me and they feel lost. They feel that they just, somewhere along the way, they screwed up, they failed, but it's really there's other perspectives that we can look at, right? There's different things that we can think about. Maybe this was for a purpose. Maybe this was training for life. Maybe there was something, a lesson that you needed to learn to be able to advance to the next level. And I remember having a conversation with my Heavenly Father one day and I said, am I really that stubborn? And he's like,
Mm,
mm-hmm. So he
mm.
was, and that might have been me talking back to myself. But yeah, if we're more pliable and we're open to different perspectives and things that, we get to open ourselves up to, and not worldly things, but the things that are in us, right? That he's already placed in us. And the possibility, because I really truly believe from my life experiences and the people that I've worked with, that we just have this thing in the back of our head that says we're not worthy. And so we don't go for it. We don't we don't stand up and we don't fight for it, right? And sometimes I believe that there is this spiritual war going on. And of course it's true that we don't live in just a carnal world. We live in the spirit realm as well. Our souls do, our spirit does. And there's things that goes on that if we're blind to, we don't notice it, or we might feel it, but might not acknowledge what we're feeling. And being really grounded in the things that you know are true. I ground everything that I do on the word of God, because it doesn't come back void. And for those that don't know the word of God, I wonder what they're standing on. I wonder what they're grounded in. Because if you're not grounded on truth, what are you grounded in? And that's a big, big issue. Then it's just the way we feel. How many times, Steve, have you made a decision based on how you feel and it turned out right?
Not very often.
I'm glad I'm not alone, because I feel the same way. It's just like, oh my gosh. So, one of my base trainings that I do is on emotional regulation, because people buy with emotion, they respond, they react, they make their decisions based off of an emotional attachment that they have to something. But it doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right decision. So we break it down into layers and ask ourselves some questions, get really curious. Why do I want it in the first place? Do I need it right now? Is this something that's going to move me ahead in life? Is this just a want, right? Or is this necessary, not necessary? Is this good or bad? Is it for me, not for me? Just a lot of different type of questions that you can ask yourself. And it really is interesting when you start breaking it down. Yeah, you've got all these answers, but are you reactive, or do you allow yourself to pause and really consider and ground yourself in your decisions? So it's just a simple practice, but boy, does it make a huge impact on the outcome. And that the outcome is always, where are we going? What is the result I'm looking for? Um, why is it important? What difference will it make? So those considerations, mixing it all together it gets kind of fun, when you practice it. And it's something that I do all the time. I sit back and I'm like, okay, is this necessary? Is this something that is really going to make a difference? Or is it just a want? So, and it's okay to want things, right? I mean, there's a time for that. You might want to go on vacation. You might need to go on vacation, right?
Yes. That resonated.
Yeah, absolutely. But I just really love being able to work with people that have, you know, that hunger, that desire to be better, that are ready for change, that are, really looking for something else. And there's this fire inside that's just like an unquenchable fire. And I really believe that's a person that's chosen for greatness. Someone who is just not willing to settle, not willing to submit or bend a knee to just average. And if we really are answering the call in our life, are we recognizing what is it that's pulling us forward, you know? And sometimes I look at God like this. I mean, we're his children, right? I look at God and he's like, no, 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 you go over this way. No, 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 go over this way. And he keeps guiding us. But there's trials along the way, because I see this really cool phrase that said, there is no change without struggle.
Mhm. Yep.
nor is their strength. And I was like, whoa, that last little tag that came in there, it's like, so struggle turns into our strengths. And
Mhm.
so if we are willing to take on the challenge, if we're willing to face certain things, if we're willing, which is a big word, by the way, if we're really open and willing, to take it on. It's like I used to be a personal trainer many moons ago, and people would come to me and they knew that I was a little bit on the hardcore side of getting the results. And so I'd always be pushing them. And coaches do that too. They will challenge you, they will push you, and they will put you in this area where it's uncomfortable
Mhm.
until it isn't uncomfortable. It's just like when you first start. Have you ever just went to work out and then it's like, oh my gosh, my body hurts for the next 2 weeks, and then it doesn't because now my muscles are conditioned and they're
Mhm.
accepting, and then they actually get hungry for more. It's like, okay, so what's the next thing I can do? What's the next thing I can do? And just keep building and building. And that's part of the process, just being able to really be able and willing to step into it and then do it and commit. It's part of leadership is committing, being
Right.
responsible for what you're doing and acquiring some of these high performance habits so you can start leveling up your life. Once you start accomplishing things, it's like your confidence starts to raise, your motivation increases, your attitude, your perception, all of that just starts to unfold in this beautiful way. And once you have this track record, so to speak, of being able to accomplish this and accomplish that, when you get into a tough spot and you're able to look, you go, you know what? I've been here before and I know what I'm capable of. So this is not as bad as what it seems. And it helps you to really level your emotions so that you are taking it in, not all, like it's like not eating the whole apple at one time. You're taking one chunk at a time and just
Mhm.
knocking it out and knocking it out and doing the next thing. So those are really some common sense, yes, but do we do it? Not all the time. Do we consider it? Not all the time, and that's where emotional regulation comes in. Because if we're pausing, really helps a lot. That's a huge, huge element of emotional regulation. In my bio, you read that I help people who have gone through narcissistic abuse. And trauma has this way of really putting us in this reactionary mode. It also puts us in a protective mode where we cocoon to keep ourselves safe. And we start to shrink and we start to pull
Yeah.
back and withdraw and dim our light and really not walking into our true authentic self. And I really believe that it creates a level of indecision. And have you ever seen anybody really stepping into their greatness with indecisiveness? It creates procrastination. It creates this pause and this hesitation, this lack of trusting, not only the person that's in front of you, but mostly not trusting yourself,
Yep.
right? And so we work through that. We work through all these layers because everything happens in layers. We learn in layers, right? So if we have a lot of trauma in our life, and that's one layer, and then there's another layer, and starts to build up, and then we push it down because we don't want anybody to know, and we cocoon again, and we protect it to keep ourselves safe. But that cocooning, that holding it all in, actually is hurting us. It's hurting you because you're not flowering. You're not walking in to a situation or a challenge or any of that with courage, confidence, and this believability that you can actually attain or do that. And it's like going into a mental gym in a lot of ways, but it's also an emotional gym more than anything. to be able to just do it anyway and trust that it's all going to work out in the end. So what if you make failures? It's like, failures, Thomas Edison was
Mhm.
someone who was amazing. He loved failing. It was something he embraced because he learned so much along the way. But trauma, like in a narcissistic relationship, when you're put under a microscope and all of a sudden you're like watching your every move and everything that you do, and you're just like so worried about making a mistake, because if you make a mistake, what happens? It gets all blown out of proportion. And it's a really interesting warped reality in those relationship dynamics. So training the brain to look at it differently from a different perspective of, you know what, it's okay if I make a mistake, because if I don't get it this time, it might not be the second or third time, but maybe it'll be the 10th, right? And I will have mastered that. But along the way of still trying and still stepping, what's happening is you're building confidence, because you learn one more thing about yourself. You learn one more thing about the process. You learn how to take what's working and start perfecting it, start building upon that, instead of being so afraid that you never tried at all. And I believe that people that are in these relationships really get this mindset. It's like, I give up, get to this point where I quit, but that fire inside won't let them. I know I've been there. I've been there where you just want to keep going forward. You just keep want to step and step, because there's something inside of you that is greater than the circumstance. And being able to say, yes, I will take the next step. Yes, I can do this. Yes, it's okay if I don't do it perfect. But as long as I'm stepping forward, I'm still in motion, right? And if you're in motion, you're not what? You're not stuck, because you have momentum. You can go through a mud, but if you have momentum, you're going to breeze right through it and get to the other side.
Yeah, it's fascinating conversation. I found that one of the challenges for me in this area of mindset was I had been trying to do it alone for 54, 55 years. Now, to your point, we've got the Bible. That's got to be our standard, especially for Christians, right? And if if you are a follower of God, you have a community of believers around you, some local, some around the world, like you and I, we're in different parts of the states, but we're connected that way. But pertaining specifically to patterns of thought and mindset, um, if we haven't been introduced to new ways of thinking, we rely on old patterns. Even if they're unhealthy, they become our, I think you may have even said it, safe place.
Mhm.
And quite frankly, our minds have been leading us instead of the other way around. And our minds can be very deceitful. I remember a time that I was on a cohort coaching call with a business coach, and I forgot the exact topic, but um, I used the term, I was a little defensive, and I said, I'm just trying to grind. I'm just trying to make a living for my family. And she stopped me
Oh, I've
cold in my
so been there.
tracks. It's especially for guys. I mean, it's just a natural thing to say, just grinding, or I'm pulling myself up by the bootstraps. Those two. And she said, stop right there. And I was like, what did I say? She said, you don't even know it, but you're using victim mentality. And I just kind of sat back and I was like, the defensiveness in me wanted to be like, what are you talking about? But
Mm.
luckily I humbled out and said, okay, tell me more. This must be something I haven't learned yet. And she went on to tell me, explain it to me. But we all come across, when we're trying to grow in our mindset, we come across what I call the border bullies. And that's a derogatory term, you would think, but actually, just on the other side of that bully is where the growth is. But you're not going to be able, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. You're not going to be able to get past that border bully or your old patterns of thinking by yourself. It takes a community of people calling you higher that have been there in order to do that.
Oh, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I have ran across that changed my life, this simple little statement. So we have a past, right? We grow up, we learn things from our parents and the people around us, and we're programmed in school big time. You're told what to do, when to do it, how to do it, why to do it. Follow in line, don't be disruptive, don't cause a problem, don't be yourself, because if you
Mhm.
are, you're different than someone else, you're going to be ridiculed, right? So the simple phrase was, you can't bring everything from the past into the present and expect it to be different, number one. But if you have a vision you're walking into, you have to learn to set everything that you know aside to really be able to create your future. Because otherwise, you're recreating the same things over and over. And I know that sounds so painful, but it's so true because we
Mhm.
default to where we're comfortable. We default to the things that we know are true or are not true, just what we've been told. It's just a way of being. I mean, how many people have you walked up to that said, well, that's the way we've always done it? And it's like, it's like, really?
Oh,
That's the only way that you know how to do it, is the way you've always done it. So, what have you done differently to create a different result or a different perspective, right? What have you challenged yourself with to be able to get this level of there's other possibilities. There's a different way I can look at this, or resource someone that knows something more than you do. Sometimes ego gets in the way, right? So resource someone that knows more. We were just talking about that before we got into this meeting about, oh, you know this, and oh, I know this. And when we exchange and share ideas and experiences, not only does it not let us feel like we're alone in this world doing it alone, but it opens our mind to different possibilities. I mean, we were designed for connection. And people that have gone through narcissism are conditioned to go into isolation. They're
yeah.
conditioned to do it by themselves because they don't trust, because they've spent it might be a lifetime, it might be decades, it might be 5 years, but if it's severe enough, it will teach them that they can't trust anybody, because a narcissist, their main objective is to create, discomfort and set you up to fail. So they have a reason to point a finger at you. So they have a reason to, they're like your accuser in many ways, but they set you up to fail. And you can see it. You can see it in politics. You can see it in communities. You
Mhm.
can see it even in workplaces very easily, where someone will sabotage someone, and then take the credit for it, right? All the work that you had done, they might steal all of your work and then put their name on it. So it's retraining the brain to find and resource people that are higher thinkers, that have higher values, that are, really have your best interest in mind. I did this one teaching on, or this one speech on, there's no gray matter. There is no gray area in life. They're either for you or what? They're against you. It's very simple. It's either right or wrong, up or down, in or out, back or forward. But the gray matter in between, this gray area, if you want to call it, doesn't really exist. You're either in the boat or in the water, right?
Mm,
You're either
it's good.
you're either fully committed in, or you're not, because that 1% still says that you're not fully committed if it's at 99%, right?
Right. Wow. So, i- how did you get involved with working with narcissistic survivors, basically, people that were in those kind of relationships? How did you start getting involved with them?
Well, I've experienced it since I was a little girl. I was the youngest of 8 kids. I seen it in my family, and it changed me. You know, it. I became a master observer.
Hmm.
I'm still a master observer to this day, but I have used that skill set to not only learn about behavioral patterns, about the ways that it might affect my way of being and how I show up. So, my heartfelt position right now is to really teach people, you know, the how to. It's not about, okay, yes, there is a blueprint. There is this idealization of understanding all the patterns and the behaviors, the tactics, the subtleties of manipulation, all those things. I do teach that so that you have a clear understanding of, okay, so now that I have this information over here, what am I going to do with it? And the piece that very rarely do I hear teached is, so how do I be able to stand in my power, stand in my identity, which really is your power, right? Because if you know who you are, somebody else doesn't have the opportunity to shift your belief into what they think you are, right? Speaking
Mm,
something negative. So it's really a building process to understand who you are. And it's been one of my more iconic questions that I've always asked through life. It wasn't until someone disrupted my thinking, by just asking questions or making a
mm,
suggestion that there's something different out there, a different way I can look at it. And so I became very intrigued and very passionate, because anybody who's really gone through severe narcissism like I have, the last thing that you want to do is see someone else suffering from
mm,
it.
mhm.
Your level of compassion goes way up, and you can spot it in a heartbeat if you're paying attention. If you really want to resolve this problem, it becomes something of interest and you see it. And I've seen so many people, I've heard people go, well, once a doormat, always a doormat. Man, does that break my heart when I hear somebody say something like that?
Mm,
And I know you're all about worthiness. And so the question is, if that's what you really believe, I am a doormat, and you're claiming I am, there's a lot of power in our words. And the
mhm.
words that we speak is how we are identifying ourselves. And I remember being in this intense leadership group, and someone challenged me, and they stopped me in my tracks, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, Anita, you know, you're in fight, flight, or freeze." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" It's like you have a story behind something else, behind that, that you're telling yourself and identifying yourself with. I'm like, whoa, that is powerful. And I was so happy that they told me that, which in most cases, people, like you're saying, your ego gets in the way and you might be a little defensive, or, you know, how am I going to receive this? Is this for me or against me? Right. Well, in this case, it was 1,000% for me. And so I took that information and really started to dissect this element of capturing thoughts. in the moment, and then pause. Where's that coming from? Is it true or not true? Is this something that is for me or not? Is this something that I really truly believe? Is it true? And if it's not true, then I get to replace it with the thought that is true.
Right.
And so it's really just sifting and really realizing how, and we're talking about patterns, right? So this is part of the patternizing of how we see ourselves, of what we believe, and what we are putting our energy on. So have you ever been on a project and you're just like, you're putting all your energy on that project until it's done?
Sure.
So imagine you've built this wonderful thing, right? And you put all your energy on it. But a lot of people put all their energy on the problem rather than on the solution. And so the more we're focusing on that problem, the more we think about it, because their subconscious is running the show. It's running everything. So it's training our brain to shift out of the negative thinking and really start looking at what is a thing that is true? What do I want to put my energy on? And how does that affect the way I show up? Am I showing up with this possibility energy of this? I'm going to lead and not be a follower and be an independent thinker, not in a negative way, but in a really positive way, one that can create wonderful things, one that can create, you know, a level of motivation, of inspiration, right? This being the beacon, being the light. So remember we were talking earlier about shrinking and dimming your light? This is the
Mhm.
other side of that. This is the side that is like, I'm walking into my leadership, because it really does take leadership to be able to walk out of a trauma situation. Because either you're going to settle and accept it and receive it and carry the weight and the guilt and the shame and the condemnation and all those things that you feel inside, because you're not, your subconscious is telling you this too, that you're not where you're supposed to be.
Yep.
You're not living up to your full potential. You know that on the inside. So being on the other side and becoming the leader, creating things of light that are worthy of inspiration, that are worthy of someone else going, wow, I want to do that too. I want to be that person. I mean, it can be at home, it can be in the workplace, it can be in the community, in the church, it can be in, in educational spectrum where, who are you leading? What are you telling them? Is it tried to true and tested? Those are the three T's, right? And testing is super powerful. If we test, then it will say true or false, right? If we test, it will be able to show if we're on the right trail. And testing is super important. It really helps us to ground ourselves. Because if we're not grounding in truth, what are we grounding in? We talked about this right at the beginning, right? Then it's
Yep.
just a good idea. It becomes this, oh, it feels like, and this is where a lot of the problem that we're having in society is there's no basis for what people are projecting on other people. Because that's a one thing that a narcissist will do is they'll project and project and project and project and condition. And so they were saying to change a habit, it takes 21 consistent days, or to change a thought pattern, to change not a habit. A habit takes 18 to 254 days, depending on how committed you are.
Right.
But to change your thought takes 21 days. So just imagine someone is speaking something false over you. And it might not be 21 days, it might be 21 years or 21 months. And how that affects you. See how powerful this is? It is incredibly, our words are so powerful. Life and death is in the power of the tongue. So being able to lead in this area and teach people a different mindset, a different way of looking at things, a different tactic, if you will. Because I know there's a warrior inside. You can feel it. That fire isn't there
Mhm.
for just like kindling purposes. It's this, you've gone through this invisible war and you didn't understand what was going on because you didn't understand what the whole purpose of it was. You know, what I believe, and I'm just going to say this with all, this is something I found tested many, many times, that this is a spiritual war.
Oh yeah.
It is not a human so much as it is the spirits that we are battling in
Yep.
the unseen. And if someone is influenced, and it all based off of influence, right? They're being influenced, and you are the target. Because, Steve, I know that you're a super compassionate, a loving, sensitive, empathic almost individual, and that makes you a target as well for being subject to this spiritual warfare.
Mhm.
Because what is the one thing that's going to heal this world?
I would say love.
Absolutely. And you need to care for people to be able to love them, right? Or love them to be able to care for them. It goes either way. It's like work without faith is dead, and faith without works is dead, right?
Yeah.
But if you don't, if you, like in my relationship, I can't tell you how many times I heard the words, I don't care. I don't care.
Mm.
I don't care if that bothers you. I don't care if that hurts. I don't care if you want
Mm.
that. I don't care if you need that. I don't care.
Wow.
And then I also heard you are, and it wasn't positive that followed. You are this. You have, it's like you have no concept of this or that, and just very belittling and dismissing and diminishing. And yeah, just right down the road, they're just like pegging them down, and
Mhm.
they rewind it and they do it over again. So speaking of the 21 days or 21 months or 21 years, and you go through this conditioning, it's really a form of brainwashing in some ways. But moreover that, it is emotional imprinting. It's emotional control. So how do people buy? If I was to drive up in a concept car and I go, Steve, what do you think? You want one of these? You're like, oh, I love concept cars, right? I want one of those, you know? And it's like, so you'll put your energy into figuring out a way to get that concept car. That is an emotional buy. It might
Yeah.
not be something you need, right? Something you definitely want, right? Because it makes you feel like, hey, I'm pretty cool, right? So ego gets involved in that. And I'm not saying that's what you want. I'm just using that as an example.
Yeah. Let's camp there for a second. The car's a pretty good example. I'm gonna use myself. This is great because I feel like I'm in a one-on-one coaching session with you right now, but hundreds are gonna get to see it later, so it's awesome. Um, I had someone tell me, and they were spot on. I'll give you an example. Um, Working on a couple projects, and they were giving me input on how I could get there. And my old patterns of thinking, which were quite stubborn, I might add, was that's going to take forever. And they were trying to implore me, well, yeah, if you keep making no decisions, the whole analysis by or paralysis by analysis, that whole thing, imperfection. But really, I was stuck in old thinking of some other things in my life had taken a long, long time. And I was in my heart, like you said, it's a spiritual war. I was combative and resistant to new ways of thinking because I'd gotten comfortable with my old patterns of thinking, even though it wasn't working for me. And I'm a visual learner. I'm a linear thinker, but I'm a visual learner. And this person simplified it for me so much. They said, you know what? You're saying it's going to take this long. And that's your response to everything I'm suggesting is that's going to take forever. Or gosh, that'll be a few years. That's your mind. And that's this side of the pancake. But if I take a spatula underneath that pancake and flip it, there's a whole new world of thinking that you're not even seeing yet. But let me indulge you with let's flip it from my perspective, Steve. If you do X, Y, and Z, this could happen much quicker than your mind on the other side, that's getting fried
Mhm.
right now, by the way, would ever think about it. So he was introducing me to a whole new way of thinking. It was so simple, but once you get the concepts, you have new tools in your tool belt. Is that making sense?
Yeah, absolutely. The tools are so important. Like I remember when I was, this is such a funny story. So when I was young, my brothers used to like toy with me. And, they'd give me the crappiest tools to work with and the hardest. Everything was manual. But I tell you, when I found power tools, I was like, heck yeah, versus taking a manual screwdriver, especially
Yeah.
a flathead, right? That's going to pop off and strip the screw. Then I come up there with a power drill and it's a Phillips head and it's a zing. And it's like, oh my gosh. Because I love building things, right? I love creating things. And I was just like, I'm never going back to, I mean, you do have them on hand. The manuals come in handy once in a while for little tinker things, but I was just like so excited. And I was also kind of mad that I was led astray, that I was being toyed with, that I was being
Mhm.
played. And so it puts you up, you need your antennas up, right? And you
Mhm.
need to really know yourself to know, am I willing to settle for something more difficult and more time intensive, takes more energy? Or am I willing to open myself up and be vulnerable and surrender to my ego and ask some questions and reach out to somebody that knows more than I do? And I love doing that. I'm such a question box to this day. I'm just a question box. I'm like, how do you do that? Where did you find that information? Does it work? Doesn't it work? How did you like it or not like it? Just little, you know, conversations that open up things that, or who do you know that, if you don't know, do you know somebody else that knows, right? And resource, and keep resourcing. And, that's a form of leadership in itself. And it sounds so simple, but becoming resourceful is so vitally important, because when you're in isolation, you're not resourceful at all. I
Mhm.
was doing a study on indecision, just not being able to decide. I was doing the study on this, and it is a cripple. It's like having your legs broken for being able to be productive, being able to execute things. It takes away your efficiencies at such a high level. A lot of the things that I teach are high performance skills, and they're not that difficult if you're willing to implement them. But it is about practice. Personal development is really a journey of practicing and rehearsal, right? And it's deciding what character that you're going to be and where is that character going to be in your vision. Your vision's always ahead of you, right? So what work do I need to do in the process to become this character in the future?
Yeah.
So what's missing? And you can always find that out in the areas that you resist the most. Those are your flags that are saying, hello, okay, you have resistance. Because I used to have a big resistance on getting on camera. I hated having my
Mhm.
pictures taken. I hated being videoed. I'm just like, no, don't do that, you know? And I would hide. It was part of my isolation thing, right? I was always
Mhm.
hiding. And I didn't want, because I was so used to being microscoped, that it was microscoping myself, picking myself apart, finding, things that weren't, weren't working. And there was a lot of things I found that weren't working because I was microscoping everything. And it was just incredible when I started noticing that we are we are so hard on ourselves, right? We're so
Mm.
hard on, wanting this level of perfection. And then getting to this point where we're like, you know what? I really like who I am. In fact, looking in the mirror and saying, I love you, took me decades. It took me decades. And it hurts my heart to say that, actually, because I was not receiving myself. I was not accepting, it's like insulting my creator in a lot of ways. Just saying, I'm not good enough, feeling like you're not good enough, this level of worthiness, built up. But once you really know who you are and whose you are, it changes everything. That's the foundation that I base everything off of. It really
Wow.
is. And it's not egoistic. It's not
Mm-mm.
arrogance. It's not like this level of spirit superiority. It's based off of love and realizing that we're all here for a specific, extremely specific purpose, and we're supposed to be different. We're supposed to be doing different things, not all the same thing. I remember when I was a little girl, I was talking to my mom and I was just like looking at all the different people. We'd go different places. I go, wouldn't it be boring if everybody was the same? I think about these robots that they're cloning, all these robots, to work off of one program. And really that is the other side of the coin, right? That is, the total opposite of what I was talking about earlier about just realizing how important being different is and doing something different and tying that to your leadership, you know, either you're leading or following, you know, what are you creating that's going to be legendary? What are you creating that's going to impact thousands or millions of people? What are you creating that is going to make the difference in this world? What legacy are you leaving behind for your kids and your family and the generations to follow? Wow, that's a tall order, isn't it? But it doesn't have to be if you're walking into your purpose, right? I mean, what you're doing with your banner of you are worthy is so powerful, Steve, because just reminding people, just saying it out loud, like you are worthy, gives people hope, gives people
Yeah.
this sense of, wow, I am important. I am special. I have something that nobody else has. And that alone makes you worthy.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said a couple of minutes ago. I'm right there with you. It was just a few months ago that someone encouraged me to do that very thing in front of the mirror. And I'll even bring scripture into this a little bit because this isn't talked about nearly enough. We do talk about denying ourselves, and there's a place for that, no doubt about it. I had to make a decision today where it involved denying myself. But the scripture that I want to talk about in the Great Commandment, where Jesus says, love your God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength, and love your neighbors yourself. Okay, the Great Commandment, we all know that. But there's a missing commandment in there we don't talk about. Love your neighbor as yourself. Well, how compassionate are you going to be with your neighbor if you're not compassionate about yourself? If you're not forgiving of yourself, are you going to forgive your neighbor? If you're not, let's just get down to it. If you're not very loving towards yourself, you're not going to be loving towards those around you. And I've grown in that
And we see it all the time,
all the
don't we?
time. But I want to take what you said and just couple with that, and our viewers, I want you to try this. And this, I'm learning with you guys. Okay. I've done it a couple of times, but I need to do it more consistently because that's where the belief starts to come in, is with the consistency. Look yourself in the mirror, look deep into your eyes, and tell yourself how much you love you and how much you are worthy of love, respect, and success. And don't be surprised that first time you do it, it won't be easy because it's something you've never done before. It won't be easy. And I know there's guys out there watching right now that think, oh my gosh, Steve's lost his mind. You know what? This goes for men and women. Okay. And if I can do it, you can do it. Hey, you know what? Nobody else will know. It's you in the mirror, right? But you're going to be surprised at how emotional that is the first couple of times. And that's okay. It's okay. I'm letting you know it's okay to be emotional with yourself. There's transformation happening when you're doing that. And your confidence is going to grow. Your love and respect for yourself is going to grow. So I appreciate you saying that. And it's a great reminder to me that I need to get back to doing that more consistently. Anita, we could talk and talk. I'd love to have you back. Two things to close out. Where can people find you? And then, in your own words, remind our viewers why you feel they're worthy.
Well, people can find me. I'm on Facebook under Anita Smith. I also have a Meant for More page. Or they can, if they really want more information, they can reach me at Meant for More or meantfor.more@outlook.com. I also have a free workshop, or it's actually a master class coming up, and it's called Break the Chains. And it is still on the hot plate. So when I get it, I'll send that to you. But it's coming out in November, and it is going. Yeah, I'm just working on it, and I can't wait to deliver it because it's going to be so super powerful. And it's dealing with emotional regulation, which is the most powerful tool of self-identity and self-worth. And being able to realize that no one can control you unless you let them. Because let's face it, narcissists are all about control and manipulation, right? And what they can use or take from you, and how they can, it's really like they plug into you, they drain the resources, and then they leave. So
Mm,
it is super important. But we see this everywhere. We might deal with it. You might be with somebody and you don't even know that this is happening. And this class is going to be just extremely powerful on so many levels to just increase awareness. You mentioned something about the scripture about loving yourself, right? And how many times have we seen people that really don't love themselves? They're upset, they're resentful, they're angry, they look like they're carrying, 100 pounds on their body all the time, their heads down, they're, scowly, they're, it's a form of ugly that most of us don't
yeah.
want to admit to, that we've been there at one point or another in our life, and most all of us have. I won't
Mhm.
do a full sweep, but I don't know of anybody that hasn't gone through, difficult times. So I know that that's an element, right? But if we learn to really love ourselves, and it can start with something as simple of writing, what do I do well? What do I like about myself? Split a page, and if there's things on the negative side, then you get to look at those things and you get to see what things you get to create that are going to flip it and tell you a new story on the positive side, right? Pick one at a time and
Mhm.
just Be patient with yourself. I don't know about you, Steve, but there's many times that I've been like so impatient with myself. I've been like,
Oh,
oh, I want it yesterday. I don't want to deal with this now, you know? But God has this great way of slowing us down, causing us to look at things, and there's always lessons that we get to learn along the way. And, you know, if we don't love ourselves, it's really hard to love the way we should be loving. You know, if somebody slaps, you know, if somebody brings something up, you know, that might not feel right, the biggest gift that we can give somebody is to pray for them.
mm-hmm.
And not pray, oh my gosh, I hope they change, but pray blessings over them, right?
Pray with them.
Or pray with them. Beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just stop and be that bigger person, right? And that's the power of emotional regulation. That's the power of knowing yourself. And that's the power of walking in your leadership and being the best version of yourself that you can be.
I love, love, love that. Did you say the name of the program? Do you have that yet?
Hmm.
The new, are you
It's
able to
called
give
Break
us
the
that?
Chains. Yeah.
Break that
It's
you did
called
say
Break
that.
the Chains. Yeah.
I love that too. And you reminded me of a visual that a friend of mine, we were having this discussion about things we're working on in the future, and the blessings of God and how sometimes they don't happen in our time frame because of our impatience, like you were referring to. We're impatient with him and we're impatient with ourselves. And he's like, imagine your favorite cookie and your loved one, friend, wife, whoever, your mom is baking your favorite cookie. And remember, as kids, we loved to open the oven before it was done being cooked.
Hmm.
And we're like, are they ready yet? Are they ready yet? And the reality is, every time we open the oven, we're slowing down the process of what we're going for. I think
Yeah.
it's that way with the blessings. Like, is it ready yet, God? Is it ready? Is it ready? It's like, I'm working hard on it over here, but you got to let me do my thing. So
Yeah.
I thought of that when you were talking about our impatience with each other, or with ourselves, I should say.
Yeah. I love that analogy. It brings me back to when my mother used to make bread every Saturday, and we couldn't wait for that bread to come out of the oven. It was so fresh and so soft.
Mm,
Oh,
mm.
oh my gosh. I can
Oh,
just
yeah.
smell it right now.
It is almost dinner
Yeah.
time.
Oh, well, I got you. I'm priming you for dinner.
Oh,
I really
yeah.
want to thank you for having me on your show. This is really just I could talk to you all day, Steve. We have such great conversations, and you're such a blessing, you know, by putting these videos out and creating these interviews with different leaders and different, you know, being able to bring different perspectives and hope and change and transformation. I mean, my gosh, it's, you know, transformation can be fun
Mm.
because then we, you know, I mean, somebody said something, you know, a couple of things. They said, you know, I used to be this person, right? And we a lot of times don't feel like we're changing, but we don't realize how much we change until we see where we came from
Exactly.
and acknowledge the growth in ourselves and acknowledge, you know, the struggles that we have pressed through in this process of going through. It's like going through the storm, going through the fire. You're always better on the other side unless you choose not to be, right? Unless you choose to carry the weight, right?
No.
But I just love the fact that there is always hope. There's always hope for transformation and change. There's always something to look forward to because no day is ever the same. Thank God, not every day is the same.
Absolutely. Hope. I always say hope is the fuel that keeps us going just when we thought we were totally out of gas.
Yeah. Oh,
We need
love
it.
that.
We
Yeah.
need it.
Yeah. And we need each other. We're
We
built for
do.
connection. and not to do it alone. And if anybody wanted to reach out, you know, I have such an open door for receiving people, and helping them in any way that I can, build up their confidence, build up their resilience, build up their identity and who they are, and get to stand in that unapologetically. God didn't make mistakes when he made you and I and everyone else. I have this really, did you get that image that I sent you of the potter and the clay?
Oh, I did. Yes.
Isn't that just the coolest thing?
It was so inspiring. Yes.
And I mean, really looking at that, everything he does is perfect,
Mhm.
everything. And yeah, and we're the clay. We get to be molded and be flexible, right? We get to learn, we get to grow, we get to expand, we get to experience and really be the light in this world. I love this one phrase that I think it was Pastor Stephen Furtick said. He said, "We're the salt and the light. Those are the two chemicals that change everything they touch."
Mhm.
So to be the change, we need to be the salt and the light.
Salt and light. There you go. There you go. Salt and light. Anita, I thank you so much. You're a treasure. You are definitely salt and light. I want to thank you for sharing your heart, your wisdom, and your vulnerability with me and the viewers. I thank you for your friendship and your sisterhood. And we're going to get those links that you gave out here just a couple minutes ago. We're going to make sure we get that in the description. So, Pete, let me encourage you guys, reach out to Anita. If you're struggling in these areas that we talked about, reach out to her. She does have a heart to want to help. She's got a lot of experience doing it and she's making a difference. Don't try to do mindset or try to deal with a narcissist specifically on your own. So I just want to encourage you guys. And then to close out, guys, it's just an honor to serve you. It's an honor to try to bring you a little bit of light in a very dark world right now. We need more hope. We need more gratitude. We need more encouragement. We need more love. And so I just want to close out by saying there's people out there that do care, and you're looking at two of them on the screen right now. And God's not done with your story yet. If you're alive today, and if you're watching this, you're alive, right? It's a good thing.
That's right.
God's not done with your story yet. So please be encouraged by that. Be encouraged by the things that Anita shared. I love you guys. We'll catch you real soon. God bless. Have a great rest of your evening.